Clearly, I am a glutton for punishment because here I am for the second time this month reacting to your unpopular opinions about Taylor Swift. This is a series on my channel where I ask you to submit your most unhinged hot takes on everything to do with the Taylor Swift cinematic universe, and I either agree, as I said in my last video, rare, or disagree, common, with your opinions. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Zach. I am the Swiftologist, and I make thoughtful weekly videos about pop culture. This is my last Taylor Swift video of the year, and the next video you will be seeing from me is not anything to do with Taylor Swift at all. January is going to be Grammy month on the Swiftologist channel. I'm going to go through and give you 4 very detailed video essays on the albums that I think deserve to win Album of the Year. So if that sounds good to you, make sure to subscribe. Over half of you that watch my videos are not subscribed, and that's honestly very hurtful to me at this stage in my time on YouTube. If you like watching me suffer by reacting to your insane and unhinged opinions, then hit the subscribe button. Without further ado, let's just get straight into it and start with what I think is the most unpopular opinion of all time ever in the world. Not even just to do with Taylor Swift, just in the history of unpopular opinions. This, to me, I think is the most unpopular one of all. Matty, Healy, and Taylor Swift were a great couple. A great couple if we were in Upside Down world. A great couple if this was opposite day. I don't understand how, putting aside how stupid Matty Healy is and all the annoying, dumb things he's done since he dated Taylor Swift and, even before, putting that aside, I would never have paired those two people together just randomly off the street. They don't look like they're in the same league of attractiveness. They don't seem as if they belong together. And the people they surround themselves with and the things that each of them says and their goals and the way they operate and move through this world is completely different. Matty Healy is a noted freak, to be honest, if I can speak my truth. I used to love the 1975, but even I, who tends to try and stay away from letting my opinion of an artist be colored by the way the artist behaves, even I like Azalea Banks, even I cannot deal with Matty Healy anymore. I went to a 1975 show this year and it just wasn't good. And that's a worse crime than, just being a terrible person who still makes bangers. Some of the music is still good, but the shows are terrible. And you know what? I'm glad that Taylor realized that there was more out there for her. There was a special meathead waiting for her that was far superior to this gross, stringy little lima bean. Unpopular opinion rejected. You're Losing Me didn't deserve to do this well on streaming. Now, who said that? Who said that? Any Taylor Swift song that is released in the year of 2023 is going to do really well on streaming. And I don't know why you want to punish You're Losing Me. What did You're Losing Me ever do to you? You're Losing Me is one of the best songs on Midnights. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is one of the best songs on Midnights. It is one of the most honest and direct songs on Midnights. Not all Midnight songs can say the same. And I think that it added a whole new coloring and layer of understanding to the way that we saw this record play out and our conception of how it was created, even in the first place. I think it brings us closer to Taylor in a more traditional sense. The bedrock of our parasocial relationship with her is her feeding us intimate personal details, of which Midnights was pretty much entirely devoid. It was the Easter egg album, if there ever was. Megan Thee Stallion, Midnight's the Easter egg album. So I think that You're Losing Me deserves her flowers, and I think it should have 80 billion streams. That's my feeling. I don't get why people hate on Taylor for being a billionaire. Jay-Z and Rihanna are billionaires and no one says anything about them. Yes, they do. Yes, the hell they do. I watch Kimberly Nicole Foster, who is an incredible cultural commentator on YouTube. I am so inspired by all of her work. She has been talking about how, billionaires aren't going to save the planet. In fact, she just put out a video recently talking about how confounding and upsetting it is that people who would never stand to even be in a position of amassing $1 billion go to the mat every single day to protect the honor of people who don't need you to do that on their behalf. It's interesting to see how different fan bases kind of mimic or take on aspects of their faves' personality. One aspect of Taylor's personality that I notice the Swifties take on all the time is a victim complex. So anytime anything has been done wrong onto Taylor, it is the worst wrong ever done. No one else has ever experienced the misogyny that Taylor has in the industry, for example. No one else has had anything even close to what she's had to deal with. And this comment is reeking of the same kind of sensibility, which is that, oh, well, other people are doing it too, so why aren't we mad at them? As if that makes it any less valid to still criticize Taylor for being a billionaire. Again, being a billionaire is bad, even when you're Taylor Swift. I have a whole video about that. I don't like how public she is with Travis, speaking about it in Time magazine, for example. I think this could blow up on her. I mean, I think at this point, her approach to relationships, from what I've seen at least, is it's going to be forever or it's going to go down in flames. That iconic line from Blank Space has never rung more true to her actual lived experience. And it's kind of sad because that song was obviously like a satire and a farce. But at this point, like, if you're signing on to date Taylor Swift, like, you should be working under the assumption that it is going to be forever or it is going to go down in flames. And it continually surprises me when the exes are just not ready for what happens, because it is a formula, it is a routine and a rigmarole that happens time and time again. In terms of her speaking about it, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. We can see that she's definitely renegotiating how she wants to be a public figure in this year specifically, after the breakup with the flop heirloom turkey, useless nothing. So I think that because she is recovering from heirloom turkey addiction, she is kind of like swinging in the opposite direction of being super private and becoming very public about this. And I think also, you know, she's at that kind of level and magnitude of fame where there is no hiding things. And it takes more effort to hide something than it does to just maybe try and weather and deal with the consequences of really openly, you know, with your full chest dating Travis Kelce. So I think that's what she's going to do. And I mean, it's TBD on whether it will last and how it will progress, but I'm seated casually. I'm not out here asking, when are you going to get married? But, you know, I'm waiting to see what will happen. Okay, this person seemed to be a Joe Alwyn stan in my Instagram DMs, because I got 2 messages in quick succession saying Joe Alwyn's career was ruined by Taylor Swift and he was disposed of as soon as she was at the top of her game. Why do you guys keep making me do heirloom turkey slander? I'm happy to provide, but it seems like you set yourselves up. You're upset by the fact that I say mean things about the heirloom turkey, and then you serve it to me on a silver platter. Destroyed his career. What career? What career? Conversations with Friends, noted terrible accent, pulled from Hulu, widely renowned as a flop, hasn't really booked a part since, gave a hand job in The Favorite. What career are we talking about? It's not like he's had any sort of like prolific roles, or, you know, one could argue that he himself ruined his own career by not taking advantage of the fact that he was dating Taylor Swift for 6 years in order to, I don't know, network. But you can't network when you're a miserable old turkey. When you won't put a smile on your face and you ignore Taylor Swift glaring at you with storms in her eyes, you know, then you will realize what it's like. And in terms of her disposing of him as soon as she got super famous again, that is completely asinine. Taylor Swift, when she met him, was still one of the most famous people in the world. So to act as though she has only just become famous, sure, she's reached another stratosphere of fame, absolutely. But this was before the Eras Tour had even started. Like, this was still, or like right after the Eras Tour started, before the pandemonium really began. She has always been one of the biggest artists in the world, and I don't think that her having a huge career moment would stop her from being with someone that she loved. I mean, we're very clearly seeing this play out with another person, right? So have you considered that maybe the turkey was just a flop? Screw Sonic Cohesion. Yes, 1989 slapped, but Speak Now, Red, and Midnights feel more real. I was with you until we got to Midnights. And then I was like, what do you mean that feels more real? That album is literally 90% incomprehensible jargon unless you are deeply familiar with the Taylor Swift lore. And even so, it's only started to become clearer in hindsight as we get context, which is kind of a cool thing about it. But I certainly wouldn't say that that feels more real. If anything, Midnights, from a writing perspective purely, is one of her more guarded and more careful records that is not really like coloring outside of the lines or taking any sort of chances. So I don't really understand how you could say that that is better than 1989. 1989, I mean, as a concept, was supposed to be a bulletproof imperial phase pop record. It wasn't supposed to be diaristic, I'm speaking straight to you from the deepest recesses of my heart, which is what we had with Speak Now and Red. It was a very intentional shift. And Taylor talks all the time about how she needs to shapeshift and change her image up in order to survive in an industry that disposes of women very readily and very quickly. So if Taylor had really just done the Speak Now thing for her entire career, we would not be where we are today. And you wouldn't have such iconic sets in the Eras Tour, such as Reputation in 1989. So shut up and be grateful. Me is overrated. It's a fun and campy bop. I'm sick of reading this. This is not an unpopular opinion because people send it to me all the time. Something can't be camp if it's not self-aware. Me is not self-aware. She really thought she was writing the next Shake It Off when that occurred. And I've done me slander so much that I just don't have it in me to do it anymore. So if you want to think of it as a fun campy bop, that is your journey to go on. I will not be walking with you. I Forgot That You Existed is the worst opening to a Taylor Swift album. It should have been Cruel Summer. And I got another unpopular opinion later on that was like, Lover was a bad name for that album. It should have been called something different, which got me thinking like, okay, if I was repackaging Lover, working with the material that we have, how would I do it? I have a playlist on my Spotify where I reshuffle all of Taylor Swift's albums and put them into a more cohesive story or a track list that I think flows a little bit better. And my Lover track list is probably the one where I trimmed the most and reshuffled the most. If I was Taylor and I was going back and redoing Lover and reconsidering the way that it was structured, of course, I Forgot That You Existed would be struck from the record, because I Forgot That You Existed is fake. Taylor Swift buries hatchets but keeps maps of where she puts them. She may pretend to forget that you exist, but really, if you're her enemy for life. Till the day that you die, she's thinking about how you're her enemy. So it just felt as very like forced, insincere, and hollow. And that's how I felt about the snake turning into the butterfly at the beginning of the Me music video. It just felt very ham-fisted. It felt like an artist really trying to force us to believe something without giving us like solid proof that it was true. And I think we've gone on to see that I Forgot That You Existed, being able to just move on and be above things, that's not really her vibe. I mean, the entire Taylor's Version project is like one exercise in being very vindictive. It's an exercise that I support. It's an exercise that I love and clap and cheer for, but it is an exercise in being vindictive nevertheless. So that doesn't really ring as true to me. And for a similar reason that I won't get into now because I've done this so many times, Daylight is also a hollow and forced ending to that record. I probably, there is a lot of discord on that album. There's a lot of tension. I mean, we know the relationship wasn't as good as it was being painted out to be. Songs like Afterglow and Death by a Thousand Cuts and Cornelia Street really hint at there being a lot more friction, tension, and rockiness than she would have liked us to believe. So Lover was kind of a bit of a bait and switch. I would have maybe just called the record Cruel Summer and still done the like dreamy pastel sunset marketing, but given it a darker edge. I wouldn't have made it like Reputation per se, but I would have made it like, I don't know, I would have upped the contrast and turned down the highlights and upped the shadows. If I was editing a thumbnail, that's what I would have done with the aesthetic of Lover. I would have just made it feel a little bit more real and realistic. It felt very abstract and like pastel-y and for children, to be honest, the way that it was marketed. So I think it could have been saved with some trims and with a little bit of a pivot. The first 3 songs off of Speak Now should have been the Speak Now set on the Ear His tour, which is Mine, Sparks Fly, and Back to December, instead of Enchanted and Long Live. I mean, I'm always a proponent of putting Mine on the set list, don't get me wrong. That is one of my top 10 favorite Taylor Swift songs of all time. And I know it seems like the Speak Now set actually isn't that long because it only has 2 songs, but those 2 songs are both kind of mammoth. Granted, Enchanted is still cut down, but it still clocks in at like 4 minutes. When we go to the Fearless set, I think that entire segment of the show is like 7 to 8 minutes long. That's actually not very long at all. And it just seems a little bit more robust because it has that extra short version of Fearless in it. But I think that Long Live and Enchanted, I was thinking about this in the shower actually when I was preparing for this video. I think that those 2 songs are super representative of the Speak Now era. Enchanted is the Taylor Swift song to me. That's the old Taylor. In one song, it's Enchanted. It's that wide-eyed optimism, that girlishness, that naivete, that whimsical, wonder-struck, blushing all the way home-ness of it all. And Long Live is a song that is about the fans. And Speak Now is an album that really was for the fans. It's the If You Know, You Know album of the Taylor Swift discography. It is the unsung hero. It didn't have any like huge radio hits. So I would always stand for Mine to be included in the Speak Now set. Don't get me wrong. But I kind of understand the inclusions of Enchanted and Long Live specifically. I think that they represent 2 very essential pivotal moments of the Speak Now era. Sparks Fly is fun. It's just a good like production number, but she has done it on so many tours that I wonder if she's just like, can we come up with something else? And to that I say, I would rather have Enchanted and Long Live over Sparks Fly. So yes. The 3 a.m. track slayed harder than any of the Midnight songs. Oh, that one is just wrong. That's not an unpopular opinion. That's a wrong opinion. The 3 a.m. tracks to me were mostly a snooze fest. I know a lot of people are really into High Infidelity. I really don't like that song. That is a bleep bloop song. It is melodically not very interesting. It does have some tea and some interest in it. I love Dear Reader. Don't get me wrong. I do love Dear Reader. I think would have, could have, should have is a masterpiece. I enjoy Glitch. But Bigger Than the Whole Sky, The Great War, Paris, like these are B-tier Taylor Swift songs at best, other than the 3 that I just mentioned. Even Glitch is a B-tier Taylor Swift song, if I'm really speaking my truth here. So I also don't think that they really rounded out any gaps that we had yet to understand about the record. The real coup, if we were going to add on extra songs at the time to give us a little bit more context and understanding, would have been You're Losing Me. that really would have been all the tea that we needed. Instead, we got a whole lot of nothing. Like, there is too much filler on Midnights, in my opinion. And the 3 a.m. tracks certainly do not help that at all. Taylor chose the wrong songs for Red and Evermore on the Eras tour. What about Holy Ground, Right Where You Left Me, and State of Grace? This is interesting. The Red set was always going to be very hard to put together because the songs on Red are so long and rambling, and half of the songs that should be included on the set list are like pop songs that really are not super indicative of what that record's heart was actually about. Luckily, we do have All Too Well 10 on the set list, and that just takes up so much time that it's kind of impossible to get through all the pop numbers and give All Too Well 10 its entire moment to shine without making some concessions. Now, the edits that I would make is that I would make 22, We Are Never, and I Knew You Were Trouble a mashup. Let's get all three of those songs out of the way in 4 to 5 minutes or less, and let's add in Holy Ground. I'm always here for a Holy Ground inclusion, but I think more likely Red the Song would have been a really good inclusion there. The Evermore part of the set, to me, is the most disappointing part of the show. I really am just baffled and perplexed by the selections that she chose. I understand the power of Marjorie, and I know that it's a really moving moment for Taylor and for many people, but for me, I find it to be a bit of a drag, and I also think that Champagne Problems is a bit of a drag. So I would really cut those two in favor of some of the more upbeat tracks that are available on Evermore. For example, Gold Rush, Right Where You Left Me, things that have a little bit more spunk in them, you know, because the Folklore set is pretty sleepy too. I think that the Evermore set, especially because it comes so high up at the top of the show, it could be improved by having a few more like moments. Long Story Short was really begging for an inclusion here, especially, you know, when we're talking about the eras. But I suppose, you know, Long Story Short really revolves around finding the right guy. And that right guy turned out to be the wrong turkey. Jack should never have produced the new version of All Too Well. I've been saying this. I've been saying this for months. I've been sounding the alarm. I've been banging the drum. He really jacked up the production of All Too Well 10 for me. He jacked up. I didn't even get that. That was a pun. He really messed it up in a way that was upsetting to me and disrespectful to the canon. I also don't like what he did with Don't You on Fearless. I think that Vault Track should not be given a lot of creative contemporary license. Like, this is a historical project. We're going back and revising the record. So let's try and stay as true to the truth as we possibly can. The All Too Well 10 production also kind of takes the wind out of the sails of many of those really important and punctual lines, like, I was never good at telling jokes, but the punchline goes, I'll get older, but your lovers will stay my age. If you look at the SNL performance of All Too Well 10, I find that to be the arrangement of that. It's more like the 2012 version of Red, and I find that to be so more deeply resonant with me than the production that exists on the record. And I am kind of irritated that the live version of it on the Eras tour does have elements of the Jack production. I think that we should just, you know, if it ain't broke, with the greatest song of all time, let's not fix it. And yeah, Jack will pay for that one day. Red is still the most iconic re-recording despite the botches. It has the best vaults. 1989 is overrated. I was with you on Red has the best vaults because quality-wise, I would say Red probably has the most stunners, like absolute incredible inclusions. And that's very much supported by All Too Well 10, which was something that none of the other re-recordings were going to have, just in terms of a lore and a world-making perspective. So I could kind of get with you on that. But saying that the 1989 vaults are overrated is kind of silly because I feel like they are perfectly rated. How can something be overrated if it's only been out for like 2 months? And, you know, everything that recently comes out is overrated because of recency bias. So give it a second, wait till the project is done, and I think you will see they were perfectly rated for exactly what they were, which was impeccable bops, most of them, truly. And they really fit in on 1989, and they give us so much more of a rounded perspective on what was going on in her personal life during that time. And to me, 1989, because it was the album with the most distance and remove, that was the one I was the most curious to get some extra insider information on, because it really did seem as though she was holding back in that writing process. And I feel very happy with the inclusions of Is It Over Now and Slut. I think we got everything we needed to get from those. So I would not say that the 1989 tracks are overrated. I think if you're looking at the Taylor's Versions project as a whole and including the re-recordings, you cannot say that Red is the best one. Like, please be serious, beloved. Half of that is a botch. But if you're just going on the vault tracks, I'll accept that opinion, sure. Her red carpet looks are 80% flops. She never sells them and they're so forgettable. I don't understand what her stylist is doing. She has a stylist and she pays him, and I don't understand why, because he doesn't style her. Taylor looks like a store mannequin when she arrives to the red carpet. Occasionally, the store mannequin gets dressed in a nice dress, but most of the time, the store mannequin is wearing something that doesn't really fit on it properly because it's a mannequin, doesn't really like match its vibe because the mannequin is not supposed to be taken into consideration. It's very much like she's just standing, wearing a gown. And I feel like the clothes wear her a lot of the time, and she has never really been able to establish a personal sense of style. Even in this year where she's had intergalactic slays, if you put all of her red carpet looks in a row, there isn't a lot of cohesion. There isn't like a theme. There isn't like a sense of style, a personality through her sartorial choices that comes through, which is what style is. So yes, she looks good. I don't think anybody's denying that she, occasionally turns a look. Renaissance premiere, she looked great. But are they good looks? Are they memorable looks? Very rarely so. Reputation is sonically cohesive. Well, yes. Whoever said that it wasn't? It has the same two producers all over it. And the only song that is like not really sonically cohesive is New Year's Day. And that's because it's like the closer crying moment on the record. So I don't know who's been telling you that Reputation is not sonically cohesive, because I don't see that. And I see a lot of the crazy stuff that Swifties say. They send it my way most of the time, and I haven't seen that. Lavender Haze is the best song on Midnights. The abject boredom and haziness of the song is everything. I can appreciate what you're trying to say, and that is one cool thing about Lavender Haze, but to me, it's just not all that. It's not all that. I think when you have a song like You're on Your Own, Kid on Midnights, and then you look at something like Lavender Haze, it's kind of like, well, how can you say that's the best song? This is another thing with Swifties. It's like your favorite is not necessarily the best. My favorite song on Red is Holy Ground, but it's not the best song on Red. The best song on Red is All Too Well. And Lavender Haze, girl, I mean, it's there. Is it the best? Certainly not. Reputation is kind of overrated. Now, I've been seeing this one a lot lately, and I know exactly why. It's because everybody's talking about Reputation Taylor's version, and it's coming up soon. That's what everyone said about 1989. That's what everyone said about 1989 when that was coming out. That's what everyone said after the marketing assault from Red Taylor's version. That's what everyone said about Speak Now, that they couldn't connect with it, and that it was overrated, and that Fearless was bad, etc., etc. So, I mean, Reputation is overrated. Sure, if you think so. But if we're just going by the numbers, not her commercially best performing record, not well received by the critics at all at the time. Factually, you are in fact wrong. So there's that. The underdog narrative is kind of annoying and outdated at this point. Yes. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but like the Taylor Swift project kind of falls apart if she doesn't have a villain to portray herself as the hero against. Right now, it's Scott Borchetta and Scooter Braun. And trust me, I am with you, diva. I am with you, diva. But there are certain instances like when she's talking about the AMC deal and how studios just like didn't see her worth and how she had to instead negotiate this crazy deal herself. I'm like, the undertone behind that is like, I am a scrappy small family business. Me and my family just negotiated this deal in the face of these huge big streamers. What the outcome of that negotiation, Taylor getting a deal to distribute the Eras tour in a nationwide cinematic release without putting it on streaming, what that signaled was in fact that Taylor has exactly the same leveraging and bargaining power, if not more, than the studios themselves she was trying to pit herself as like the underdog against. Do you see what I mean? So it is interesting how she continues to do that, but it is becoming less and less true. Whether I find it annoying or not, I don't really care because I can see when it's happening and I just, call it like I see it. So it doesn't bother me that she does that. But I think that it is certainly getting old. For her next album, Jack needs to go so that she can challenge herself artistically. I've been saying this. I've also been saying this. But I don't think he needs to go. I think people misunderstand me sometimes. I don't think that Jack needs to be gone from the Taylor Swift career. He just needs to take a step back. And something that was so beautiful about some of the best songs on Folklore and Evermore was that Jack wasn't on them. She got the chance to build a connection and develop a trust with another collaborator and ended up making some, career highlights. I think that working with Jack is like easy and safe and reliable, and he will turn her a hit. He will turn her an album that will please the TikTok people. But, we need to be in a space of, creative boundary pushing. And I don't know if Jack can take her there. But at the end of the day, like, it's not really about Jack. It's not really about the collaborator. It's about Taylor and her appetite for doing something new, her appetite for taking a risk, and her wanting to push herself out of her comfort zone. Because working with Jack in the first place got her to 1989, which was a departure from the kind of pop she had been making before. He convinced her to do Look What You Made Me Do, which is one of the like most eclectic and weird songs in her entire discography. So like, he's able to give her new stuff. It's whether she is in the space to be adventurous, really, is the question. So kind of agree, kind of disagree. 1989 sucks lyrically. Bad Blood, Mad Love, This Love Is Good, This Love Is Bad. 1989 does not suck lyrically. It's just a different kind of writing. I mean, Blank Space is one of the best written songs in her career. I think if you are looking for a Cry on the Floor, mopey, sad song, then you're not going to get that from 1989. That wasn't the purpose of the project. But I think that 1989 was Taylor doing something actually very important and legacy building, which was, she was like, how can I make a timeless pop album? How can I make an album that sounds both modern and also new, and something that isn't going to date itself in 10 years time? Because, you know, 10 years later, to me, 1989 sounds as fresh as it did the day that it came out. And I think that it will continue to sound very relevant and very contemporary as time goes on. So the way that she wrote that album was with a bigger project in mind, pointing to lyrics like Bad Blood, Mad Love, and This Love Good, This Love Bad. You know, that's a reductive way of looking at the writing on this record, when we do have songs like Blank Space and even Out of the Woods. That's a sparse song, but with the images that are created by the words that she does include, I think it's very startling and very effective and very emotive. So listen harder. Okay, this person was just going absolutely sicko mode in my Instagram DMs. And I think that this person hates Taylor. Like, I think that what's going on is you're confused, and these aren't unpopular opinions about Taylor. You just hate her. So this is what we got. And this was in quick succession, okay? She should retract the statement that she's Christian after creating the Willow video with witchcraft. I didn't realize that people, like, fans of hers, actually thought that she does witchcraft by like looking into a fake crystal ball and having an invisible string wrap around a music video set. People literally think that that means that she believes in witchcraft. And okay, so that's how it started. And then it went on to, she doesn't care about her international fans, which sometimes, you know, I can see why you would think that. It took her a long time to do dates, and, you know, shipping for merch is not always great. But I have to say, like, this is the biggest, most comprehensive and expansive international tour she's ever done. There's never been a better time to be an international fan of Taylor Swift than now. I also think that the movie was shown in so many countries across the world. Even though, you know, these things do come later, they are happening. So I don't know if I can really get behind that one as an international fan myself even. She dates because she's insecure and needs male approval when she shouldn't need a man to be good. What if she just wants to be in love? What if being in love has always been like a very creatively inspiring and fulfilling thing for her, and she wants to have a partner? That's not something to look down upon. To want to be in love, to want to have someone to share your life with, is the most normal and natural human impulse. In fact, if that is not an impulse that you have, that is maybe something to be concerned about. And that doesn't even mean necessarily romantic love. It's about like intimacy and feeling close to someone. So I think it's a little misogynistic to say that she's doing it because she needs a man to feel good about herself. Yes, I do. And, you know, I know it was misogynistic because the next message is she has pick-me-girl energy, which can be annoying. Taylor really does not have pick-me-girl energy. Taylor is, with the exception of Better Than Revenge, a girl's girl. She, you know, was Selena Gomez's soldier through her dating one of the worst men in the history of the world, Justin Bieber. We can see that she's currently standing strong and true for Sophie Turner, giving her her apartment as she goes through her divorce with Joe Jonas. Like, she, I think, will side with her girlies over a guy. So pick me energy, I don't think so. They also then said some of her songs are badly written, so you hate her is the conclusion that you've come to. I can't help you with that. That's a disease from which I have no antidote. People who have an obsession with Taylor getting married are as bad as the Gaylors. This is categorically not true. I do think it's weird that people are obsessed with Taylor getting married to Travis specifically, or obsessed with like her getting pregnant, her getting married. I think there is a certain level of like millennial woman projection. Like, a lot of women have grown up with Taylor Swift, and they are in these stages of life where they're considering these personal life monuments and like milestones. And I think that they are curious as to what Taylor's going to do with hers. Speculating about it in public is weird. I agree with you. I try not to do that for most of the time. If I do speculate, I try to do it based off of something that like she said, or I try to like use actual like lyrics or interview sound bites that we've got to draw a conclusion. So I agree with you that it's weird, but the Gaylors are in a completely different league. They're conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy theorists are in a state of reality denial, and the lengths to which that can go are very concerning. So I don't think that the people who want Taylor to get married and talk about it in kind of a pathetic way are as bad as the Gaylors, who are one of the worst and most toxic parts of this fandom. Yes, they are. And I will say it forever until the end of time, because I'm not scared. The Taylor Swift courses in college are ridiculous. Taylor Swift chapter in pop culture course would be better than a whole class devoted to her. So I think that like the person who wrote this has not investigated what any of these Taylor Swift courses are, because they're usually not, it's not a course being like, we will now learn every fact about Taylor Swift. Like it comes under a discipline. It's like a literature class. Like this one professor actually emailed me a syllabus I think she was working on where she was looking at different literary references within Taylor's work and kind of like situating Taylor in a larger literary tradition. And that's a really smart way to get young people engaged with literature. One of the challenges of like teaching young people things about like the old world, especially in an age where our attention spans are so fractured, one of the challenges of that is making it feel relevant to them. And I think if you can use something like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, there are Beyonce classes, to, you know, introduce people to like deeper ideas, theories, artists or other writers and creatives, if you can use those popular culture figures as like conduit, then I'm all for it. I think it's amazing. And I also think that like a lot of the courses that I've seen are like segments of a larger course. Also, Taylor Swift is a huge part of popular culture, and popular culture is something that like literally touches every part of our lives and the way that we interact with each other and the world in ways that are a lot more serious and consequential than you think. So taking time to study the Taylor Swift phenomenon reveals a lot about like our group psychology as human beings, as a society, as fans, as haters, as whatever it is. It's good to understand how these things work from like a more meta analysis level. So why do you hate that? Why does it upset you? Just don't take the course. Sometimes embracing cringe isn't a good thing. We don't need to do dads and brads and chads. I have to say, I cringed a little at that too, and not in a good way. There are times where I'm like, accept cringe. I agree with her, where she's talking about like the cowboy boots and her big poofy dresses and her obsession with fairy tales. Yes, embrace that cringe. Are there things that maybe you should just, you know, leave behind? Being a little embarrassed is part of being self-aware, and Taylor's very self-aware. So I think her message of embracing cringe is a really good one, but there are times when she still does cringe. I don't think she knows that she's doing it, but she is just a millennial lady. The proudest one ever in the history of the world, according to her. Midnight Rain deserved to be the sleeper hit of the year instead of Cruel Summer. Well, Cruel Summer is a banger and a bop and the opener to the tour. And it was a #1 hit before it was even written, before it was even created. When it was A Twinkle in Her Eye, it was a #1 hit. The Martians in space actually were turning this up at the space station. They abducted Taylor in the middle of the night on a UFO, and they beamed it into her brain, and then she came back to Earth and wrote it. So Midnight Rain doesn't really have the same vernacular. It doesn't have the range. Midnight Rain also is too short. It sounds a little teeny tiny bit unfinished, and it doesn't have that instant, when you hear the intro to Cruel Summer, like, don't you just get a full body jolt? Midnight Rain is like chill, relax, vibe. Cruel Summer is like, I need to go to the hospital now. That's all I have for you today. You guys have driven me up the wall enough. Although I have to say, there were some interesting and thought-provoking statements made in this video. I hope that you all have a very happy new year, and I will see you in January for the beginning of Grammy month. If you have any video requests about things related to the Grammys, tangentially, I will be doing 4 video essays on the artists that I think deserve Album of the Year the most. If you have any ideas on other like Grammy topics that you would like me to discuss, I was thinking of maybe looking into the biggest snubs in Grammy history, Album of the Year that should have been, that weren't, nominations that should have been given. I was looking into maybe doing that a little bit. I'm going to talk about the voting process and how that all works in all of my video essays, so you have that to look forward to. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to me this year in 2020-2023, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye, Swifties.